Which will happen first? The release of the next Half-Life game, or the heat death of the universe? This is a question that keeps coming up in my life. Friends, family, acquaintances, and random YouTube comments have all been asking for an answer to this simple inquiry. Today, I guess I should find out. So let's answer the question. Will Half-Life 3 release before the end of the universe? I also want to ask, if the answer to the initial question is yes, then how many new Half-Life games will we get before the universe dies? Let's start with the answer to the first question. Will there be another Half-Life game ever? And I don't mean like in the next year, but I mean in the totality of time from now until the end of the universe, will there be a new Half-Life game released at any point? I think the answer is yes. Valve has been leaking, well, like a leaky valve. So we've been seeing signs for years that Half-Life 3 is on the horizon. There seem to have been some delays, but I think that these delays will be months, or maybe a year, not billions or trillions of years. But let's say it gets cancelled. For whatever reason, Valve doesn't finish the game. Well, fear not, there is still hope. Due to copyright law, Valve won't own the rights to Half-Life forever. Sometime in the next century or two, depending on how copyright law ends up working out, Half-Life will enter the public domain, and anyone can make a Half-Life sequel. Some might say that that doesn't count because Valve isn't making the game, but then that would mean Blue Shift, Opposing Force, and Decay aren't real Half-Life games. And I don't really want to get into that right now. And all this doesn't even take into account Valve's already generous stance on the creation of fan projects. We also need to talk about the apocalypse. Presumably, if civilization collapsed, Valve would stop making Half-Life games. The famous Doomsday Clock, the one clock in the world that under no circumstances should be moved forward for daylight savings, is set to 85 seconds to midnight. Taken literally, I guess that means that the world might end before this video does. Now that's a terrifying prospect. But you know what they say. Nothing ever happens. The world never ends because if it could, it already would've. Plus, all the great societal collapses of history didn't stop progress forever. Valve could probably get back to making Half-Life games 50 or so years into the post-apocalypse. So we can be reasonably sure Valve will make another Half-Life game. But now I want to know, how many games will they make in the future? Now, you might say the future is unknowable. But if you're one of those people, then this video isn't for cowards like you, and you should go ahead and click off. Unsubscribe, whatever you need to do. You're not welcome here. I propose that the following is true. As long as humanity exists, they will, however infrequently, continue to make installments of the Half-Life series. So the question becomes, what would stop humanity from making games? And if you think people would stop making Half-Life games, I disagree. We often remake things from thousands of years ago. There's a retelling of the Odyssey coming out this year, and that's an approximately 2,700-year-old story. Chess is also a game we still play, even though it's somewhere between 500 and 1,500 years old, depending on what you want to define as chess. We will keep making Half-Life games and nothing will stop us. Well, I say nothing, but there are a few things that could put an end to the supposed infinite glut of Half-Life sequels. Let's circle back to our old friend, the heat death of the universe. If you, like me, subscribe to the theory that once a civilization reaches a sufficiently advanced technological status, it becomes effectively immortal, able to spread itself across the cosmos without a care in the world, then the only thing that can kill it is the literal end of the universe. So it follows that the only thing that can stop Valve from making Half-Life sequels is the heat death of the universe, also known as the Big Chill. You know what? Calling the heat death of the universe the Big Chill is the science equivalent of saying unalived instead of killed. Now comes the math part of the video. In order to figure out how many Half-Life sequels will be made, we need two numbers. how many years it takes to make a Half-Life game, and how many years we will have to make them. So, how long does it take to make a Half-Life game? That's a good question, with a complex answer. So, to make it simple, we'll just divide the number of Half-Life games currently released by the number of years in the universe thus far. I decided there were 8 Half-Life games. I'm not counting the death matches and Lost Coast because really they feel like parts of other games. I don't know, if you're mad about it, then unsubscribe. But I digress. The universe is about 14 billion years old, so that comes out to a Half-Life game roughly every 1.75 billion years. That means that life evolved from this to this in the time it takes to make a Half-Life game. Now on to how long the universe will last. Estimates for when the heat death of the universe will start getting really serious are about 10 to the 100 years from now. That's 1 followed by 100 zeros. Some people refer to that number as a googol, so you might have heard of it before. Of course, at that point, the universe will be in an advanced state of decay. There are other advanced physics at play in these scenarios of the hyper-distant future. We don't know if protons decay, and if they do, how fast they do. If protons decay, then the universe could end a little bit sooner. If they don't, it could last a fair bit longer. I'd argue the universe in any of these states of advanced decay probably isn't conducive to the creation of Half-Life sequels, so let's look a little bit earlier. Let's talk about the end of star formation. Stars, I feel, might be needed for the continuation of galactic-level civilizations. We can argue about whether that's true or not, but even if civilization could persist without stars, it might not be able to do so for a cosmically significant amount of time. According to some estimates, star formation will cease 100 trillion years into the future. I put that as the end of any possible civilization, and thus the end of Half-Life sequels. So that's a Half-Life game every 1.75 billion years for the next 100 trillion years. Let's do the math. 100 trillion divided by 1.75 billion is 57,142.9. So that's 57,142.9 Half-Life games total. Maybe that 0.9 represents how Half-Life 3 is almost done.
Would we model ourselves on the trilobite? On the trilobite?